Have you ever looked at your life and felt a strange, heavy emptiness waking up just to carry a weight that does not belong to you? You have the job, the routine, the things you worked so hard to build. Yet you stay in relationships that drain you and careers that dim your light, whispering to yourself that it is too late to change. But then there are those rare individuals. The ones who look at everything they own, everything they have achieved, and decide to walk away. They pack a single bag. They leave the familiar warmth of a predictable life. They step into the absolute cold of the unknown. To the outside world, this looks like madness. It looks reckless. People might call them unstable or even terrifying. Why would anyone willingly choose to stand at absolute zero? The truth is, there is a profound, almost frightening strength in someone who can let go of everything. It is not an act of desperation. It is an act of ultimate psychological survival. When you have nothing left to lose, you suddenly become the most dangerous person in the room. Why? Because you can no longer be controlled by the fear of losing. Most of us are prisoners of our own history. We are trapped by what we call our investments. We look at the past 5 years, the past 10 years, and we feel obligated to suffer just to make those years mean something. But the human mind undergoes a fascinating shift when we boldly break this cycle. Our brain is wired for certainty, it craves safety. So when someone intentionally shatters their own safety net, something deeply biological happens within their consciousness. Let us look closely at why this choice feels so terrifying to watch, yet so liberating to experience, when we decide to stay in a life that no longer serves us. We are not just being cautious, we are suffering from a well-documented psychological phenomenon known as loss aversion. Psychological data demonstrates a profound truth about human nature. The pain of losing something is psychologically twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining the exact same thing. Think about that for a moment. Our brains are inherently terrified of the minus sign. We would rather hold on to a broken, painful reality that we know than risk reaching for a beautiful reality that we cannot see yet. This is why walking away feels like a form of psychological death. But what happens inside the mind of the person who actually does it? When a person chooses to drop everything and reset to zero, they are actively forcing their brain to break free from another cognitive trap. The sunk cost fallacy. This trap makes us believe that because we have already invested time, tears, and years into something, we must keep investing in it forever, even if it destroys us. This cognitive bias deeply distorts our logic. We stay at the theater watching a terrible movie just because we bought the ticket. We stay in an unhappy relationship just because we have been there for a decade. Consider someone who spent a decade climbing the ladder of a career that no longer matched who they had become. Every promotion made the exit feel more expensive. Every raise deepened the trap. It was never really about the money or the title. It was the invisible math of if I leave now, everything I've already paid was for nothing. That is the sunk cost fallacy speaking. Not logic. The moment that person finally walked away, they did not lose 10 years. They simply stopped paying interest on a debt that was never real to begin with. The individual who walks away has managed to override this ancient survival programming. They possess a rare form of cognitive flexibility. They do not see zero as emptiness. They see zero as a clean slate. They understand that their past investments do not dictate their future value. There is another force working quietly beneath the surface. One psychologists call hedonic adaptation. Human beings are remarkably efficient at growing numb to whatever they have. The bigger house, the higher salary, the more prestigious title, all of it delivers a burst of satisfaction that fades faster than we expect, leaving us chasing the next thing just to feel the same baseline again. This is precisely why so many people who seem to have it all still feel that hollow ache at 2 a.m. Their nervous system has already adapted to the very things they were told would make them happy. Walking away is not just an escape from pain, it is a deliberate interruption of this numbing cycle, a way of resetting the emotional baseline itself by stepping into the unknown. They trigger a profound shift in their neural pathways. The brain, suddenly deprived of its predictable routines, enters a state of heightened neuroplasticity. It is forced to grow. It is forced to adapt. Are you clinging to a past version of yourself out of fear, or are you ready to allow your mind to expand? Control is the oxygen of the human soul. When you stay in a life dictated by expectations, you are slowly suffocating. You think you are being responsible. You think you are keeping the peace. But whose peace are you keeping? The person who resets to zero understands this deeply. They realize that a life built on a false foundation is a slow emotional death. They choose the sharp pain of a sudden ending over the dull ache of a lifetime of regret. This is why they seem terrifying to others. People who are still trapped in their own invisible prisons look at someone who unlocked their door and walked away. It holds up a mirror to their own fears. It reminds them of the choices they are too afraid to make. But starting over is not about destroying your past. It is about harvesting the wisdom from it. You are not starting from scratch. You are starting from experience. Every tear you cried, every mistake you made, every broken piece of your old life is now raw material. You are building a new foundation, a stronger one that can finally hold the weight of your true self. Have you ever wondered what lies on the other side of your greatest fear? This psychological shift is driven by what psychologists call the fresh start effect. Creating a clean break, a temporal landmark, allows the human mind to immediately disconnect from past failures. When you drop everything and start over, your brain draws a sharp line in the sand. There is the old you, and there is the new you. The old you made mistakes. The old you stayed in places too long. The old you suffered. But the new you starts with a blank ledger. The psychological burden of your past mistakes is immediately lifted. You are no longer carrying the weight of who you used to be. This is not running away, this is a deliberate, scientific restructuring of your identity. When you hit rock bottom, you lose your external markers of status, your title, your predictable income, your social standing. It feels like a crisis. But in reality, it is the ultimate test of your intrinsic value. True psychological health occurs when we stop trying to maintain a facade for the outside world, and instead, allow our inner experiences to guide our actions. The person who starts over embodies this truth. They stop living for the applause of a crowd that doesn't care about their soul. They choose the alignment of their inner and outer world. It takes immense courage to look at a life that looks perfect on paper, but feels dead in your chest and say, "This is not enough for me." Are you ready to stop surviving and finally start living? When we step into this clean slate, we enter a liminal space. It is the threshold between who we were and who we are becoming. It is a silent, uncomfortable void. The secret to navigating this transition is simple. We do not change by first figuring out who we are and then acting. We change by acting our way into a new way of thinking. We must experiment. We must try on new identities. The people who dare to drop everything do not wait for a perfect plan. They understand that clarity does not come from thinking. Clarity comes from movement, but the void is terrifying. In this middle zone, you will feel lonely. You will look at your empty hands and wonder if you made the biggest mistake of your life. Your old identity is gone, and your new identity has not arrived yet. You are a ghost in your own story. This is where most people turn back. They run back to their comfortable cages because the open sky feels too vast. Too cold. This void is not your enemy, it is your canvas. When you choose to drop everything, you are taking the pen back from the hands of circumstance. You are deciding that your current suffering is not the conclusion. It is simply the setup for your redemption. This fear of the unknown often stems from a psychological bias known as the end of history illusion. We easily recognize that we have changed drastically in the past. Yet we grossly underestimate how much we will continue to change in the future. This illusion traps us in stagnation. We look at our current identity and think, if I let this go, I will disappear into nothingness. But by resetting to zero, you shatter this illusion. You realize that the version of you 5 years from now is someone you have not even met yet. You are shifting your source of validation from the outside world to your inner core. When your worth is defined by your internal resilience rather than your external titles, you become truly unshakable. The hardest part of this journey is not the lack of resources. It is the internal voice that constantly criticizes your lack of progress. This is where you need self-compassion. It means treating yourself with the same kindness you would offer to a close friend in a difficult transition. When you are gentle with your own mind, you reduce stress, lower your cortisol, and allow your brain to find creative solutions. Kindness to yourself is the ultimate strategy for rebuilding. So how do you actually walk through this void without losing yourself? First, anchor yourself in small, repeatable rituals. A morning walk, a journal entry, a single page of reading. These tiny acts of consistency become the new floor beneath your feet when everything else feels like free fall. Second, resist the urge to make the void mean something permanent. The discomfort you feel is data, not destiny. It is simply your nervous system adjusting to the absence of old certainties. And that feeling will not last forever, even when it insists that it will. Third, find at least one person who has been through their own reset, not to copy their path, but to remember that the void has an exit. Isolation is what makes this stage feel unbearable. Connection is what makes it survivable. And fourth, give yourself permission to move slowly toward the unfamiliar instead of demanding an instant transformation. Psychologists who study identity change consistently find that new selves are built through small, repeated actions long before they are fully believed. You do not need to feel like the new you yet. You only need to keep acting like someone who is becoming them. The initial coldness of the unknown will pass. The silence will eventually be filled with the sound of your own steady progress. You will look back at this precise moment, the moment you had the terrifying courage to let go, and you will realize it was not the day you lost everything. It was the day you finally won yourself back. And when that day comes, you will not just have a new life. You will have proof, real, lived proof that you are capable of surviving your own transformation. That proof becomes the quiet foundation for everything you build next. Not because the fear disappears, but because you now know in your bones that you can walk through it and come out the other side still whole, still yourself, only lighter.